Hi, everybody. My name is Nick PHAN, and I'm the Artistic Director of Collaborative Arts Institute of Chicago and one of the regular hosts of Heard Over the Piano, our online discussion series this season. If you have any questions for tonight's guests or you notice anything go technically awry, please put that in the Facebook comments and I will do my best to address any technical issues as they arise. And I will make sure that your questions get passed on to our guests. Our guests today, I'm really excited about, are CAIC artists who appeared with us last in, I think, 2015, pianist Peter Dugan and baritone John Brancy. Gentlemen, if you'll join me.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Great.
Doing well. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. So just to review, you guys were our Winter Leader Lounge artists, I think, in 2015. Is that right? Down at the Logan Center for the Performing Arts. It was we co-produced that performance with University of Chicago Presents, and you guys did this amazing World War I program, right?
Yeah. Gosh, that was a long time ago. It's amazing.
Feels like yesterday.
You know, it was a highlight of that. There was a professor from the University of Chicago, an English professor who came and actually read excerpts. Do you remember that, John? He read excerpts from some of the poetry.
And Gurney, I think it was
particularly Ivor Gurney.
Yeah.
So he read some poems that weren't actually part of our program, but that were just amazing. And he had so much gravitas, and it was like, and the whole program was kind of featured around. It was specifically the British portion of that World War I project that we were doing.
I remember listening to the broadcast and just being blown away by what you guys did. I think I was actually in Houston at the time, so I couldn't be there live. But I was so glad that we broadcasted on WFMT because I got to hear it. So you guys sounded amazing as always. You're both fantastic artists. We've got to have you back ASAP.
Love to be back.
That'd be great.
When real life can resume.
Yeah.
So let's just start pretty basic here, if that's okay with you guys. Can you guys just tell us maybe about your career paths up to this point and somehow fit in there, where you met and began this?
I can talk a little bit about that. So we're both actually from the Philadelphia tri-state area, Delaware County. I'm was born in Delaware County, and then my parents moved to South Jersey. And so Peter grew up in that area, and it wasn't until I think my senior year in high school that this is kind of an interesting way of how I learned about Peter. From my best friend at the time, his uncle was the headmaster at Peter's high school, and I think it was a Catholic high school.
Yeah, and the Jesuits, and he was the president of the school.
Yeah,
the headmaster sounds more kind of like
like
the headmaster. Yeah,
headmaster. I don't know. I mean, I guess
no, but no, absolutely. He is the president of the school. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he was making us like prime rib one night for that was like his special thing he did on holidays. Amazing prime rib. And then we had this discussion because I ended up getting into Juilliard, and it was that fall or whatever before. And he told me about Peter, and he actually called it in my friend's kitchen in South Jersey. He was like, "You're going to meet Peter, and you guys, you're going to end up becoming great friends, and you're going to make a lot of music together." something to that tune. And then we ended up meeting, and Peter has a different story about meeting me at school.
Yeah, my first clear memory of John was being in the elevator. I mean, I think we at least knew who each other were. Like, it's not like he was a perfect stranger, but we weren't close friends at this point by a long shot. And we were in the elevator, and there were a bunch of other people, on the elevator, and one of the floors, everyone got off, and it was just the two of us left, and we had one more floor to go. So the doors closed. It's just two of us, and he's like, "Dude, do you want to hear me sing a high C? And of course, he's a baritone.
I'm
And
18.
I was like, sure. He's like, all right, give me a C. That was the first thing. So then I gave him a doo, doo, something like that. And he just sang in this very enclosed space, the most epic, like
I don't know if
high
it was a
C.
C. I don't think it was a high C.
You don't think it was a C?
I
Maybe
think
it
it
was
was like
a B
B flat or maybe an A, maybe. Maybe
I don't.
at 18.
I
Definitely
don't
not
know.
high C.
I don't know, dude. It was pretty crazy, and
Yeah.
it was the most ridiculous sound. It was, if you, for those of you watching, if you've never been in a very, very close space with an opera singer singing at the top of their range, it's something. And in an elevator, it's like, what? So that was, yeah. But then what we started doing before we actually played a recital together, we would grab music that we both loved out of the library, and we would just like read through stuff for fun. I mean, it was like Puccini arias, and like you would sing some tenor arias sometimes. Oh man, but
And
we would just like
it
mess
wasn't
around and have fun.
It wasn't until I was learning Dichterliebe in one of my theory classes, and that I took the songs to Peter, and we started just messing around with them, that I think we really kind of figured it out. It was kind of at that moment when we started playing through Dichterliebe in our second year or something like
Yeah.
that it was just like, oh wait a second, there's something actually here.
Right. And then it was on your either sophomore or junior recital that we
Yeah.
officially performed together for the first time, and it was Songs of Travel,
Yeah,
which
was
which
all the
we're
way
going to
through.
re-releasing officially an album of at the end of this in a few months. So it's cool.
That's
Full circle.
We're gonna have to talk about that in a second. So,
Yeah.
so John, you obviously went to Juilliard. You told yourself you were going to be an opera singer. I'm assuming.
I told myself I was going to be an opera singer.
I mean, was that? I mean, I'm assuming that was your intention.
Going to Juilliard, that was my intention. At the initial outset of going to Juilliard, I had no idea what I was doing, because I didn't grow up in a household with musicians. My father's a pilot, and my mom was stay at home at the time, and so like, yeah, I didn't really have such a clear idea of what I was getting myself into. But it was actually my choral directors in middle school and high school who kind of gave me a really great music education in public school, and I owe them a lot for introducing me to, actually, the first two CDs I got were Bryn Terfel and Thomas Hampson. It was the Songs of Travel CD for Bryn Terfel, with the George Butterworth, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I have that out. That was one of my first albums that of vocal music that I ever like actually fell in love with.
Yeah, I don't know how we all got those, but they made our way. It made the rounds in the high school seniors who were interested in classical music at the time. I want to know who that marketing person was. Sorry?
You said it was somebody at Deutsche Grammophon who knew what they were doing.
Absolutely, yeah. Sure. So somehow 18-year-old, 17-year-old me got my hands on that CD, and then also the musical theater CD of Thomas Hampson, which was also amazing, because at the time I was actually learning Billy Bigelow in Carousel, and I was singing Soliloquy for the first time, and his version of that brought me to tears in my car. I remember it distinctly. It was like, I was like, wow, this is singing? Oh. And it kind of inspired how I did the piece and how I've sung the piece since then. So those two artists, extremely substantial in every aspect, of the work that they've done, played a big role just with two albums, but going to Juilliard, no, I never really, it didn't really quite hit me until about second or third year in, where I was like, wow, there's a lot going on here, and I have a lot of catching up to do.
Wow. So what was that journey like for you when you got there?
Well, I ended up doing 2 degrees, and if I'm just being real, because I think it's important, coming from the public school background, we didn't have a lot of, we didn't have a ton of resources when it came to musical learning and stuff like that, and I was doing a lot of other stuff outside of of music, a lot of actually stuff with film. I had a lot of interest in film, but I ended up, when I ended up really taking it very seriously, the things that came easy to me was diction, and yeah, and song. Preparing songs and learning songs, and just kind of learning a lot of songs. My ear was always strong, right? But in terms of my musicality and my musicianship, that was something that needed a lot of attention. So I ended up taking evening division classes for ear training with my same teacher, and it was just to make up for the sort of the spots that weren't, working in my schedule. But at that time, I just remember it being such an incredibly busy experience from basically my third year until the end of my master's, because I was really playing a lot of catch up, because I wanted to leave with a really solid full education, and really know what I was getting myself into.
Interesting. And so, Peter, I mean, you have a really diverse career as a pianist, which does include working with singers. I mean, and it's something I notice about pianists is that not all pianists enjoy or even are drawn to working with singers, and some are, and you clearly have an affinity for it in your work. I mean, did you kind of just stumble into that, or is that something you sought out?
It was a combination of a few things that happened all around the same time. One was meeting John and becoming friends with John. I was at Juilliard as a solo piano major. I wasn't like, there was no requirement for me to play with singers. But around that time, I wrote, for a music theory assignment in one of my classes, I had to write a song in the style of like 19th century, leader. And so I wrote a song, and I asked John if he would sing it, and he did. And it was selected. We have a little competition in the music theory department, and for whatever reason, my song was like, selected to go to the final concert. And at that concert, a legendary singer and teacher named Bobby White was there. And Bobby White came up to me afterwards, and who, by the way, I don't know the numbers on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's had this actually the longest nonstop performing career of any singer ever, because his first public performance was on like it was with like Humphrey Bogart when he was like 6 years old. I mean, something really like crazy, and he continued to. I don't know if he's still,
when was that exactly? I don't know.
Well,
we should find that out.
We should do the history on Bobby White, because he has had a storied career and has sung for heads of state and has wonderful stories about dining with the Queen, and he's just like such a character. But anyway, he came up to me and said, "Are you a good sight reader?" And I did not consider myself a good sight reader at that time, and I said, "Yeah." He was like, because I'm always looking to have good pianists to come and accompany my singers in voice lessons. So I figured, I mean, I was the kind of person especially at that time, where I was saying yes to anything, especially if there was any cash involved. So, I said, yeah, man, count me in. And I started sitting in and sight reading voice music, pieces for his lessons for his singers. And then I started doing that. I was like, hey, this is a fun way to make money, because there's always an expectation that the pianist would be sight reading. Mm-hmm. So like whether someone's putting in front of you a really complex Benjamin Britten score, or whether they're putting a Schubert song in front of you, either way, it's like people understand you're just going to do what you can with it. And I learned so much at those lessons, not just about how to play better, but how a singer thinks about sound and the way sound carries, and like and the idea of breath, and like how that translates. I was becoming a better pianist, a better solo pianist, through what I was gaining in those lessons.
And you were getting paid.
And I was getting paid, and I didn't have to practice. You just show up and sight read. I remember one of my friends asked me who's a violinist, said, "Would you come and play my lesson? I know, because I know you're on the list of people who play lessons." And I was like, "Sure, what are you doing?" She's like, "Brahms Concerto." I was like, "All right." I went in and I sight read it. And when it got to the tutti sections, it was a mess. And her teacher was like really offended actually that I was sight reading it, and I'm like, why would I practice for a violin lesson when I could go sight read in a voice lesson? So anyway, the point is, this is all the dirty truth of it. But at the end of the day, then I met Kara, my wife, who's a singer, and pretty much what ended up happening is I stopped. I found myself focusing on very specific collaborations. So with John and with Kara, and I sort of, once I got out of school, I stopped playing with singers like en masse, but I continued my those specific collaborations because for me it's all about partnership. It's all about the a duo relationship that's really like fulfilling musically because you're invested in one another. So that's basically the story for me.
So it's the people and the paycheck of voice lessons. I think I used to live like 2 floors above Bobby White, and when I lived in New York for a couple of years.
Oh.
That building is famous for
Yes.
musicians.
I think Brian's in that building, and
Yep.
it's yeah.
Edith is in that building.
Yeah, she moved into the building after I moved away.
It's right on West End, right?
Yeah, West End. It's the corner of like West End and 100th or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think it's been written about in books and stuff, and it's
Did-
got.
Do you know if Samuel Barber lived in that building or across the street? I know he was like right around there.
It must have been across the street. Otherwise, I mean, I feel like I would have known if I had been living in Samuel Barber's.
I think the building across the street is where one of my voice teachers, Cynthia Hoffman, was living. Didn't you study with Cynthia at one point?
Me?
No. Yeah. Did you?
No, I never studied with Cynthia.
Oh, I thought.
So funny. I'm like so unused to being asked questions here. That's so fun.
I got that mixed up.
Yeah, no, I was like, why would Peter have studied with Cynthia? No, I have never studied with Cynthia. I've met her and know her, and she's wonderful to talk to. But
she was my first teacher, and then I worked with Edith Weens, and I kind of had an experience with both of them at school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you had a rich time there at Juilliard. Getting back to that thing about the duo relationship, I mean, that's something that is. I feel like that's something pretty special between singer and pianist, and I mean, just in chamber music in general. And I mean, can you guys describe that for anybody out there who doesn't have the great fortune of doing what we do, like what that feels like and what makes your relationship special and to you?
I could say a little bit about it. I mean, from the perspective of performing as an opera singer, and then concert and symphonic singing, I honestly can say that there's no version of classical singing that has more immediate like connection with another artist for me than song. And I'm very fortunate to do most of the work that I've done with Peter, who is a consummate artist and is always listening. That's the thing about it. It's like it's a shared experience of really actively listening to what the other artist is doing and also outputting like the most that you can do. So it's this kind of like it's a feedback loop in a sense, right? And because it's specifically just two people, pianist and singer, it kind of it feels in some ways unlimited, right? You can kind of take it anywhere in terms of your musicality, dynamic wise as well. Not that I don't love performing with an orchestra, I absolutely do. It's just that because there's so many more moving parts and so many more pieces and things to listen to and make sure that they're all together and doing the same thing simultaneously. It's very rare that you get that sensation of synchronicity, right? So to be performing and to know that you've prepared as well, like the preparation that can go into the duo is like also vastly more in depth because it's just you can have the time to focus on all of the details. So it's really, I think it is that sort of that the feedback, right? That endless feedback that you can have in the performance, and then getting into that synchronicity in the moment after having like uncovered and explored every aspect of the song that you're doing.
Yeah, I thank you, John, for what you said. But I totally agree, and I think there's this kind of trust that you develop over a long period of time with someone, so that when John and I are on stage, um, there's not like there's complete trust, and when and another thing that John's talking about, I think, is the ability to be spontaneous and surprise one another.
Yeah.
And then for when one person makes a spontaneous decision, for the other person to be able to react. And because we know each other's musicianship so well, it's like, oh, I see what you're doing there, and we know exactly where the other person is trying to lead us. And so it's like, it's a really cool experience to be on stage together. And I think that John has there's a degree of vulnerability that John is able to achieve on stage, which I find to be pretty rare among, not just among singers, but among any artist. And for me, that's one of the things that it's like a wild ride for me as the pianist, because I'm I'm witnessing him as he like bears his soul to the audience, and I'm there to just kind of like, oh yeah, I got you, bud. You know what I mean? And it's a pretty remarkable experience. And like John said, it's the whole build up to that too. Like when we prepare songs for a recital, some of our rehearsals, it's just book club. We're just like reading poems and we're just trying to make sense of the words together and develop interpretation.
We're really nerds. I never thought I would be a song nerd, but I am a song nerd, and I love it. It's great.
There's a lot to be nerding out about with songs, it's
Oh yeah.
It's a rich corner of the classical music repertoire. You guys are getting a lot of love here on Facebook. Some love from Oliver Camacho.
Oliver. Hey.
He says that John's high notes are better than most tenors, which, have at it, man. I hate singing high notes. And you've got Frank McFadden is saying he's inspired by you, John. So good for that.
Frank's actually one of my my voice students right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you're teaching? Have you been teaching for a long time, or
no?
Well, is this something you picked up during pandemic times?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because Peter accompanied me to lessons with a patron, and that was the first time I had actually started teaching. So my first experiences teaching was Peter playing the lessons,
and that was like spoiled.
That was back in like 2014. It must have been 2013, 14.
Yeah.
That was in like Gramercy Park at this guy. His name is Philip K. Howard. Have you ever met Philip?
Mm-mm.
He was involved. He's involved with like NIFOS, New York Festival of Song and stuff. Very generous, lovely person, and great voice. He's got a great voice. And we really, I felt like in that opportunity with him, I was coaxing out this like natural sound that he had, because he had sung for a while. And so now in the pandemic, I had, as many people did, so much work was canceled. And I went ahead and I opened an online studio through my website, and I've had a really incredible experience with it, and an amazing turnout of repeat weekly clients and students of varying ages, from all the way down to 10 years old. He had his birthday. He was 9 when I started working with him, all the way up to around like 60 plus. So it's everything within that range, and I mean it's been an incredible experience. I really enjoy teaching. Actually, it's I've learned a lot about my own voice actually in the past 12 months.
It's so interesting. I was teaching at DePaul for a couple of years, and as adjunct, and that was really my first serious foray into teaching regularly for those couple of years. And I had the same observation. And it's funny, I've always had the stigma in my head that like teaching is something you do when you're done as a singer.
Yeah.
As you're like kind of transitioning into another chapter. And that does such a disservice to us in a way, because I mean, when you're forced to explain all of these very abstract, very internalized concepts to young people, or novice people who are trying to learn, it forces you to practice what you preach and sort of come to a different understanding of your own technique. And
Right.
I mean, I'm interested that you had a similar experience. It's
Yeah, and it's been crazy to have it completely digitally. You know,
yeah.
seeing the efficacy of this platform that is Zoom, and actually that how Zoom has adapted, for musicians, in fact, and for online learning has been kind of amazing. Um, but it works. It really does, and it's one of the things that I find is so amazing about it is that you can really go deep on technique. That's one of the things that's just incredible because you all you see is the singer right in front of you. That's it, and it kind of creates a different sort of focus rather than being in the same room, right? Um, and yeah, from just spend a little bit more time on that idea of it influencing your own singing. you know, when you teach something, you have to master it, right? It's sort of like, or if you didn't master it yet, you will, right, through the process of teaching it. And I feel like that is the thing that I've had the experience with this year, and I feel like it came at a great time because it's not that I don't love to perform and that it I wasn't upset that this year was kind of shuttered in the way that it was. But at the other end, it's like I've kind of gained a whole new brand new perspective on my technique, my ability to communicate, and yeah, and it's been such an incredible period of growth for me.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And Peter, you're fostering young people in really interesting ways too, right? Because you are the new host. Please correct me if my title is wrong, but you're the new host of From the Top, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, please, for anybody who's watching who doesn't know what From the Top is, please explain and tell us all about it, because I'm dying to know how this is
Thank you.
going.
Happy to share. From the Top is an amazing organization that John and I are both alums of, as a matter of fact. And From the Top's been around for over 20 years now. And we are best known for our NPR broadcast, which is heard all across the country. We have about 500,000 listeners each week. And it's one of the most listened to, if not the most listened to, radio broadcast, weekly classical music radio broadcast, and it's a great platform for young musicians. So we feature musicians ages 8 through 18, and on each episode, which is an hour long, it's also a podcast. So if you're someone who listens to podcasts, you can get the From the Top podcast. And on each episode, we meet 5 young musicians, sometimes more if we have a string quartet or something like that. And in addition to hearing them perform, you also hear them. You get to know their life stories a bit. So I interview the young musicians, and I also perform with them when it's a piece that calls for a piano part. And it's just an amazing organization, because in addition to what we're doing on the radio, there's a whole other side of what we do with the kids, which is to really try to inspire them to be the next generation of arts leaders. And so arts leadership, community engagement, hugely important parts of what we do. And in the before times, we would record all of our episodes in front of a live audience as a sort of touring show. And what we did, it was funny because I was announced as the new host just in January of last year of 2020. So I had a couple of shows, and things were exciting. And then, of course, everything changed very quickly. So what I'm very pleased to say that we've still put out our full season's worth of radio this year, and we just did so. Thanks. Yeah, we just did it all remotely. So there are a few different ways that we made it work. Either we had kids go to a local recording studio in their area and record there while interviewing with me remotely like this. Or if it was possible to do so safely, I would, and if we were in the same kind of vicinity, I would go and record with them in a studio together. But also in some cases, and especially at the height of the pandemic, we were sending this massive crate of gear to their homes, and our engineers would coach the kids and their parents on how to set up the room and how to set up, multiple microphones. And then our engineers would run sessions remotely, would like hack into the, not hack in, but you know what I mean, would like get into the computer and remote control it from our studios. And
I believe that's called screen mirroring. That's the technical term, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Cybersecurity.
Honestly, I wish someone would screen mirror these episodes for me sometimes, because good Lord, it's humbling. That's amazing. And I mean,
yeah.
so you guys, how are you, I guess, weekly?
Yeah, so we don't have a brand new episode every week, but we are on the air every week. So we run reruns. Two-thirds of the time it's a rerun. But yeah, there's about 17 brand new episodes every season. Plus we do highlight episodes, and we do alumni episodes and stuff like that. So, but if you follow the podcast, it gets updated with all the new content.
And so, what is that like for you as an alum of the thing, coming to sort of be at the helm? That must be really cool.
Oh man, it was humbling and simultaneously like a huge surprise. If you had asked me 5 years ago, where do you see yourself, I never would have come up with hosting a radio show as one of them. So it's a huge surprise, but at the same time, like weirdly natural, and it was just so comfortable fitting in with the organization. The whole team there is amazing. Our producers are just fantastic, and so it was just a really, really easy fit. I love working with young people. I find, as you know, I love collaboration. So like last week, I recorded Rachmaninoff Elegy, which is a solo piano piece, but there's a cello arrangement. And I recorded it with this 18-year-old cellist. And it was like, I can't tell you how ridiculous this experience was. She is such a consummate artist already at 18 years old. And it's humbling for me, and also inspiring, and just fun to just get to sit there and like, hey, I'm Peter. Hey, nice to meet you. Let's make some music. And we have one rehearsal, and then we record, and it's like gorgeous. And so anyway, I really love it. I really love the job. And it's fun to talk to them and try to like bring out, because, you might start to think that like every young classical musician might fit the same mold. Like, it's so not true. It's so not true. Every one of them is quirky and fun and unusual. And that's part of the great joy of it, is like, who are you and what makes you tick? And then let's share that with the world.
I always, thinking about young musicians like that, I'm always so hopeful about the future of our art form, because it's so funny. Everybody's, particularly journalists, are always so ready to talk about the death of classical music, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, there's so many young people who love classical music and are so, it's life-changing for them, and they devote their lives to it. And the idea that you're going to encounter an 18-year-old or an 8-year-old who's, so gung-ho about it that they're talented enough to be on your show, and you probably like, that's
yeah,
it means the future's bright.
Yeah, and some of the stories like are just like so intense. Man, we have there's a young musician who, I guess their story hasn't been told yet, but their episode hasn't aired yet. But I just interviewed this musician about how he came from Venezuela at the age of 13, and his whole family moved to the US, and like music is like the common thread for this kid and for his family, that like it's what ties him back to his homeland, but it's also what keeps him going and what inspired him to work hard at, like, as making a new home in Florida. And just that's just one story, because I just spoke to him recently, but so many stories of how music is the thing that keeps these kids going. And it's not always just playing Beethoven. It can, like, there's a kid who plays in a marching band, and he talks about how his marching a percussionist, and he talks about how his marching band experience was like the highlight of his life, and he like cries when he thinks about being there with his friends on the football stadium with tens of thousands of people roaring, and then he plays Bach on the marimba on our show. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
That's incredible.
Anyway, I could go on and on about, but I'm we got
no. It's great. It's great. Thanks for talking so much about it. So I think we should definitely make sure we talk about your recording projects and kind of, I mean, when you guys visited us, which it feels like yesterday, but was a while ago now, you were working on this World War I project. The program that you guys did for us was a World War I thing. And you toured that around and it became a recording project, right? And it sounds like you're continuing it and kind of taking advantage of this time to kind of do the next chapter.
Yeah, well, we had intentions for it to be released last year, but the pandemic threw that into, disarray. But we, around April of 2018, Peter and I were aiming to do a big national tour of the first program and the second program. So the first program was A Silent Night, a World War I memorial and song, which is the one that we performed with excerpts from with you all. And the second program, which we created and performed April of 2018 at Alice Tully Hall for the Juilliard Vocal Arts Alice Tully Hall performance, they invited us to do that, was a piece called Armistice, The Journey Home. So it was literally like the wrapping up of this other program that we had done. And it also included songs by people who experienced the war. In particular, it was kind of following this thread of a theme of the wanderer, or the character who has lost their sense of home. Where is home, and where do they belong after having experienced such a intense conflict? So basically, fast forward a few months, we end up going on tour with both of the programs to over 20 cities and multiple military academies, who some had never really had art song recital, let alone hyper-focused programs on war and soldiers who were in the war and songs about experiencing World War I. So it was very, the energy that we had in those spaces was visceral. And I remember one of the locations where we ended up singing and performing Silent Night, was the U.S. Naval Academy in this great hall that they have there. Have you ever been to the U.S. Naval Academy? It's such an incredible, it's like entering a different world when you get on the campus. You have to go through, obviously a lot of hoops and stuff, and you have to get things signed, and you have to bring identification and all that stuff. Same with West Point, where we also performed. But at the Naval Academy, we were able to perform in this great hall, and I don't know exactly when the last time was they had live music there, but it was a while. And so we were kind of bringing these songs a week or a couple weeks before the 100th anniversary of the signing of the armistice. So there was a lot of buzz around that time. It felt like we were really on this like really relevant line, in that we were able to just communicate in such a deep way with these audiences. And the ones that had active military and veterans in the audiences, that was where I will never forget that experience, like having that visceral reaction in the moment when the words are registering and I'm singing as the character as deeply as I can, connecting as deeply as I can to the soul of the music, and then to feel the energy of the audience with people who have actually experienced such atrocities as war, and these, the difficulty that there is to go back to normalcy, So this project that we will be releasing Memorial Day, weekend. That's our tentative release date, but that is what we're aiming for of this year. So Memorial Day weekend of 2021, we'll release the album, and it's a live album. It's a live from the Kennedy Center album of the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, where we performed The Journey Home. And we're very, very excited about this album, very proud of the work. It includes songs of travel, and that in particular, Ray Vaughan Williams was a medic. And he was writing back to Gustav Holst. He was writing letters to Gustav Holst about George Butterworth, and we read them from the stage in this performance. And Peter created an incredible opening prologue, almost, with his own solo piano version of Holst's Jupiter. And so that's kind of what sets the stage for the entire show, which does span, I think, in total over 80 minutes. But we will look to actually release a visual component towards to the album release that will be around 50 minutes in length. And we have some more information about that. I don't know how far Peter wants to go talking about this.
Well, I think you gave a great amount of teaser material.
Yeah.
So, Songs of Travel. I cannot believe you arranged Jupiter for solo piano. Bravo.
It was it was Brancy's idea. John said, "You know what? You should start the whole program off with this Holst." Actually, what he first said is, Holst arranged it for 2 pianos, and you should program yourself playing it on a second piano so that you can play.
Play
a duet with yourself. That was the original thought. And then
we were gonna roll out the piano. We were gonna have a second, like, automatic playing, like, Yamaha piano or something.
Amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, once it became apparent that was not feasible, and we couldn't really have a second pianist come with us on the whole tour, so I couldn't do it with another pianist. So he was like, "Just do it yourself. Just write a version for solo piano," and
you did.
3 or 4 months,
and it's notated. You
can buy the sheet music.
You buy the sheet music. He wrote the arrangement.
PeterDuganPiano.com.
There we go. There it is.
Check that out, everybody.
There's the link.
There it is.
PeterDuganPiano.com /Jupiter.
I think it's it's either /Jupiter or /store. I don't know. Just go to the website. It's there. It's the only sheet music that I've posted so far. So you go to buy sheet music, and it's only that one. Jupiter. But there'll be more coming.
Yeah,
I look forward to more. Your arrangements of other things are really amazing.
Thanks.
It's funny. Jupiter is like the planets were one of the last things my youth orchestra played in high school. I remember everybody being so excited about Jupiter, and it was really annoying me because it just meant that they were like sawing away at that hymn tune, and it was like, it was like everybody was immediately playing it as loud as they possibly could, and like my inner soul was crushed because I was like, you guys, we're missing the build.
Yeah, that's it.
Even at 18, I had a sense of what
you gotta start small. We got a lot of him to go.
Well, that sounds really exciting. So there's going to be some movie. Is it footage from the Kennedy Center?
Yeah. We were able to get a couple cameras in the Kennedy Center, and we filmed a lot of extra documentary footage. Actually,
that's great.
Adding that into this particular release and project, it's proved to be quite difficult, actually, for various reasons, COVID mostly. But we've decided, just because the performance we're very happy with the performance that we gave, and we have it on these 4K cameras in the Kennedy Center, and with the rights to distribute it, that we figured little elements of documentary and historical context, and then mostly music, and we're working out some of the other details now with regards to some of the other pieces.
And so, I mean, you guys have been focusing on this theme for a really long time. What was there something about World War I that really compelled you, or was it the music that just drew you in, and then there's this amazing story behind it? I mean,
I think at the beginning it was the timeliness of it. It was that we were making our professional debut together. It was 100 years after.
Vocal Arts DC as well. They're inviting us to the
That's right.
our first performance.
It was with Vocal Arts DC, which is a major presenter in Washington, D.C. 100 years since the start of the war. It was very timely. And we started realizing that there were all these great composers who were either directly or at least indirectly involved with the war, or writing songs about the war. And it happened to be a moment in time when there was just an incredible amount of diversity of sounds and styles in art song. So you have songs by Poulenc, which sound who was a teenager in World War I. And, his music, of course, is so different from George Butterworth, who, and both of them fought in the war, you know what I mean? And Carl Orff, who fought for Germany, of course, and was wounded when a trench collapsed on him. So just like all these incredible stories with very different sounds. So it was like we could do a program that still gave you a lot of variety, even though it was all from one particular period of time. But then when we got into the second program, it was really more about, yes, and it was a completion of the first program, but it was much more expansive. The journey home is much more expansive in terms of time. So there's a Schubert set where we do, Der Wanderer, and there's also
we partnered that with do you know the name Rudy Stepan? Have you heard this composer? Yeah. He's rather unknown, but he was in World War I and he died in World War I. And so we found these two songs of his. I think that they're a small cycle of songs. They're just two songs together that just fit perfectly in between the three Schubert songs that we created. And he died, I think, around late 20s, and was really an incredible composer. I mean, these songs are the one song that we have of his. What is it called again?
Memento Vivere.
Memento Vivere. Yeah, this song is just it's stuck with us and has kind of become our favorite song on the program.
Yeah.
It's so descriptive, and it's the context of that song is as close in the text as you can get to Der Wanderer by Schubert. So we pair them right next to each other, and they have this like eerie similarity to them. So that was the reason for that.
Well, this sounds really exciting. Something to look forward to on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
For sure. We're excited about sharing it with everyone.
Well, you'll have to keep us posted. We're going to definitely give you guys tons of shout outs on Memorial Day. That is
Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. That's why we're here. Promote everybody. Promote your work.
One of the things, if I may talk just a little bit more about what because we have been focusing a lot on the World War I stuff. We did create a program of fantasy themed songs in the middle somewhere there when Peter and I gave our Carnegie Hall performance at Weil. But we've been talking about kind of tackling the great cycles, so Winterreise and Schöne Magalona, Brahms, An die Ferne Geliebte, and Liederkreis and Dichterliebe, which Dichterliebe we know. I mean, I know it. I've been singing it for a while now, but kind of thinking about that in terms of putting it together as a compendium of baritone cycles, and not only obviously, but for me, and putting them together as kind of like an extensive project. And we haven't actually talked about this publicly at all, so this is the first time that I'm mentioning it. And Peter, we didn't even agree to that, but that's
no. I mean, it's true. We've been talking about doing it for a long time now, and just taking a deep dive and questioning everything in all of those cycles, and reconsidering how to do them, how to make them tick.
Yeah.
Well, so you've heard it here first, people. Everybody hold their feet to the fire. Speaking of fires, Oliver is giving you another shout out, Peter, for your arrangement of Keep the Home Fires Burning. He says it's gutting, and I have to say I wholeheartedly agree.
Thank you.
It's really great.
Yes.
Facebook, if you have any questions for these wonderful, articulate gentlemen, please put them in the comments, and I will be sure to pass them on as we near these final minutes. But while we wait for the delay to catch up, I'm going to ask you guys a question. This is one I'm kind of asking. It's sort of a two-parter, and it's maybe a three-parter, and I'm asking it of everybody who comes on. But what do you think the future of art song and the vocal recital is and holds? And what is it? How does it factor into your own careers, you think? And why do you think songs are important?
I'd like to answer the first one.
Sure.
I think the pandemic has taught us a lot about what's possible in the world of film, in particular for classical music and opera and sung repertoire. And I really have been thinking about this a lot lately, and I think that I've had a great experience with the Montreal competition and with Wigmore with Peter actually. It's just been those two experiences were really thrilling. But one of the things that I really loved about them was the fact that they broadcasted everything, and they did it in such a way that was like extremely high quality. They were doing it, and Wigmore has been actually doing. I think they announced yesterday or something I saw. They had 6 million listeners for all of their live streams, which is amazing. That is incredible feat to get that for chamber music and art song. And I really do think that that's the future. I think that we're never, and maybe we will someday, but it doesn't really matter. We'll never become as big as pop music or musical theater or something like that, and it shouldn't be. The people that are coming to art song are the audience members who want to really dedicate a portion of their lives to this music. They themselves love Schubert, to the point where they can listen to it day in and day out, and that they'll fly across the world, to see their favorite artists perform these songs. And it's been really great to see other locations like also Cal Performances keeping up with the at-home performing that they're doing, and really kind of, I think that's this opportunity was born out of the pandemic, and I really hope that it doesn't go away. I hope that we kind of like go a step further into it, because the art form just really lends itself very well to being on film and going and becoming as creative as we possibly can with the medium. That's my feeling towards it. And then beyond that, what was the second question?
Why are songs important?
Why are songs important? I mean, I felt this in the World War I program, but it's like taking a time machine through the ethos and pathos of the time that the song was written, right? So by it reenacting and performing the song, you're actually vibrating the past in the present, and you're recalling and re-knowing what that experience was. And when it's lined up and it has relevance to something that's in the zeitgeist of the now with regards to like specific programming, it can lift the audience, and it can take them on a journey. Really, it can really take them through on a journey, and I think that the importance of that is, I mean, I'll be learning that hopefully my whole life. That seems like it's going to be a very a lifelong learning experience. But I hope that more people get the opportunity to have that experience with song.
I love that answer. I don't think I could put it much better for why songs are important. Just the fact that it connects us to other places, other people, other cultures, other times. It's a wonderful connector. In people say music is the universal language, which, you know, it's fine. We've heard that a million times, but when specifically with song, yeah, it really gives you a window and an insight into another culture and another time and place in a very special way. And that slightly leads to what my answer to the first question would be, which is, I think the future of song is all about inclusiveness and being more inclusive, and in many ways, but specifically in terms of how we define what an art song is. And I think that you know, we can hopefully grow towards a much more inclusive definition of what makes something an art song. And you know, I think you can listen to Joni Mitchell or Nina Simone, and you can start to think of that, some of those works as art songs in their own right. And it changes the way we think about Schubert too. If you think about Schubert as just someone who's spinning poetry in sound, rather than this great, like, you know, God figure. You know, if we can just kind of feel like, man, whether it's Joni Mitchell or whether it's Schubert or Nina Simone, whatever, it's all art song. So I hope that we can. I hope we move in that direction. Not that I disagree with what John said about film. I absolutely agree with that too.
You guys are validating our work here. This is really great. We like program a wide range of stuff, and we're filming everything this year. And I'm going to take that opportunity to remind everybody that if you'd like to support our season broadcasts, I'm putting the link in the chat right now, and you can make a donation here, should you be able to do so. But yeah, no, I mean, I think you guys are spot on. And it's this idea that a place like Wigmore, which only seats about 500 people, can reach 6 million people through their online reach. I mean, it's the potential there is incredible. You guys are getting a lot of validation in here in the comments. Frank McFadden says songs are the real presentation of history. So sounds like you're validating other people's thoughts as well. And Oliver is chiming in again, saying that John's high notes are probably better than Joni's too. I'm going to stay out of that one.
I guess we're doing a Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, that's the next album.
Yeah.
It sounds like we've answered everybody's questions because nobody's asking any. But I cannot thank you guys enough for being here and for being a part of what we do. And we got to have you back ASAP. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick, and it's just been a pleasure to be here, and I really look forward to coming back to Chicago and making some music with you in the near future.
Yeah, as soon as we can like get in front of audiences again and both film it and sing for people in real life. Thank you so much, Facebook, for joining us. Thanks for all the comments and the support today. Oh, Eric Faring also says hi. He said he loves the convo. Yay.
Awesome.
Hey, Eric.
Anyway, Facebook, take care. We are back next Thursday. Our guest next week is Manita Daniel Cox, who is a soprano and scholar. We're going to talk about the poetry of Paul Laurence Dunbar. So if you do not know who that is, feel free to Google that name between now and next Thursday. But otherwise, same time, same channel. We will see you in a week. Thanks so much, Facebook. We'll see you soon.